Alright, and hello everyone, it is me, Jay Burns, and in this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you all how to make these bracelets right here. These bracelets are my own original designs, and they are called the Hook Only Sonata bracelets. So, I made these bracelets last year. It was actually quite a while ago. I think it was like the beginning of summer last year, and, well, yeah, so I'll be showing you how to make them. There we go. So these designs are, as you can tell by the name, are a hook-only design, and if you're making this bracelet on a hook, I would recommend either using a double-ended hook or using two hooks to make this design. And I'll show you what I mean with two hooks, because when you flip the bands around, there's quite a few bands, and it's much easier to just use two hooks or to use a double-ended hook. So I'll show you how you can use both in this tutorial. Then you'll need a clip to close off both ends of the bracelet, and just like with all designs, you're going to need rubber bands. And there are three groups. I'll explain what they all are. So the A group, the A bands, I'm going to be calling them the music note bands in the tutorial because they look like the little music notes in the bracelet, and they're black here in the example. These B rubber bands, I'm going to be calling them the outer rubber bands because they are the rubber bands here. They're the turquoise bands here on the outside, which I use to add more color to the design and also add to the uniqueness of the design. Then the C rubber bands are the center bands. That's what I'll be calling them in the tutorial. Oops. And they are pretty much the bands in the center, which are crossing over each other and are attached to both the outer bands and the music note bands here. They are also used for the connector band at the beginning of the bracelet, and this rubber band that you use to close off the bracelet. So music note bands, outer bands, and center bands. So in the description I'll have the number of rubber bands you'll need to complete one section of the bracelet. So to go through the entire pattern once, I'll have the number of each type of band you'll need to complete that. And yeah, so just use the pause button so that you can get the supplies you'll need, and we're gonna go ahead and get started. Alright, so anyway, to begin making the design, you're going to need to get a center rubber band, which will act as your cap band, and, well, we're going to make it into a cap band. So to do that, you're going to put the rubber band on your hook, twist it while it's on your hook, and that new shape you create by twisting the band, you're going to put that onto the hook as well. Now what we're going to do is we're going to get two music note bands. So two of your music note bands. We're going to use one of them. We're going to take one of them, put them on your hook, and slide only this first little loop here onto that music note band. So only that first loop of the cap band on there. You'll put the other end of the new band on your hook, just like that. Then you'll get another outer band, or center band, sorry. You'll get another center band, put it on your hook, and slide it through this first loop only, and put the other end on your hook. And then we're going to go ahead and get an outer band as well. So what we're adding here is we're making this pretty much right here. So this turquoise band, this white band, and this black band right here. So we're going to get an outer band. Go put that on your hook as well, and also just slide that first loop onto that outer band. Now we're going to flip the bands around on our hook and do the exact same thing for this side of the cap band. So I'll go ahead and show you what you can do if you don't have a double-ended hook, like I do, but you actually have two hooks. So what you'll do is you'll take your second hook, and you want to make sure that, so you have this hook, it's pointing towards the left, so here I have my hook pointing towards the left. You're going to want your other hook to be pointing the other way, which would be to the right. So this hook is pointing to the right and this one's pointing to the left. So you'll take the hook that doesn't have bands on it, you'll put it going through all the bands here on the first hook. Right? And then you'll pull this other hook out of all those bands. And then when you turn this hook around, all of the bands that were on this hook are now flipped around, but on your second hook. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back on my double-ended hook here. And that's what you do if you have two hooks and you don't have a double-ended hook. Now if you only have one hook, what you would do is you would pinch all the bands together, take them off your hook, and turn them around, and then put them back on your hook. Or you can use another rubber band, put on your hook, slide all of these other bands here. So you would have to get an extra rubber band, but you would take all these bands here and slide them onto that other band, like that. And then you would take that band off and flip it around. And then put all these bands that are on this other band here back on your hook. And then everything will be flipped over. So yeah, that's the different ways. So anyway, once you flip the bands around, however you did that, you're going to take a music note band, pull it through this first loop, which should be your cap band, so the other side of the cap band, then put the other end of the new band on your hook. Now you're going to get a center band, put it on your hook, then pull it through this first loop here, and then lastly you'll get an outer band, put it on your hook, and slide only that first loop as well onto that new band. There we go. So that was actually just the beginning of the design. The pattern for making the design actually starts now. So, to begin making the pattern here, we need to get these center bands, which are the black bands for me, to the actual center of your hook. So, well, not the center of your hook, but the center of all these bands here. So as you can see, these music note bands are what's in the middle. You want these two center bands to be in the center of these two bands. So I'll go ahead and show you what I mean. So you'll take one of the music band loops, so I'm grabbing this one here on the left, and you're going to pull it up and over, so just pull it over the center band that's on the same side, and get that center band in the actual center here. Then you'll do the same thing for the other music note band. You'll grab it, pull it over the center band on the same side, which is the right side for me, and then get that center band in the actual center. And you'll end up with something like this here. So the center bands are actually in the center, the outer bands are here on the outside, and the music note bands are kind of like in the middle of everything, or in the middle of these two bands. So yeah, you want something like that there. And then to begin placing your bands, you need to twist, or not twist, but cross these two center bands here in the very middle over each other. So you'll take one of them and pull it over the other band, just like you did with the music note bands, like that. and then you got this little X cross shape here. And now we're going to actually start adding bands to begin the pattern. So, for this part of the pattern, we're going to need one outer band and a music note band. So, you'll take your outer band first, and you'll pull it through these first 4 loops. So these 2 outer bands, or outer loops, then the music note loop, and then this center loop, which you had crossed. Alright. Then what you're going to do is you're going to need to reattach this first loop. So this loop here that is closest to your fingers holding the band, you're going to reattach that. So put that back on your hook, like that, and then put the other end of the new band on your hook. Now we're going to get the music note band, put it on our hook, slide these first 2 loops onto the new band, and then only reattach that first loop once again, that same one you did before, that outer band color there, and then put the other end of the new band on your hook. And it doesn't really matter if you reorganize these 2 bands here, because they'll just sort themselves out here on the outside. So anyway, now what we're going to do is we're going to flip our bands around on our hook again. So however you need to flip the bands, you go ahead and do that. Use the pause button if you need to. And we're going to do the exact same thing on the other side. So we're going to get a music note band and a center band. So always when you're going to add a music note band or an outer band, you always take a center band first and pull it through the first 4 loops on your hook. Then you need to grab the first loop. So if you're adding music note bands, you always grab the first loop, and by the first loop I mean this band here that is closest to your fingers. So you would reattach that first loop and put the other end of the new band on your hook. Then we're going to add our music note band, put it on our hook, slide it through the first 2 loops here, and reattach that same band you had before, so that outer band there. And then you don't really need to reorganize those 2 loops there. So anyway, once you've done that, now you've added your music note bands to both sides, now we need to add our outer bands. So pretty much similarly to what you did with the music note bands, you'll just need an outer band and a center band. And before we add any other bands, we need to cross these 2 center loops here in the center of everything over one another. So you just grab one of the bands and pull it over the other. Just cross it over like that. So now you got that little X shape there. Then, before you ever add an outer band or a music note band, you take your center band, put it on your hook, and you always slide the first 4 loops onto that new band. And it's very important that you keep those bands organized, so let me reattach these bands real quick. Yeah, okay, so it's very important you keep the bands organized, except for these first 2 here, because we need to grab this music note loop here that is closest to the other center band. So it's this one right here. So you grab that one, you reattach that one on your hook, and then you put the other end of the new band on your hook. It's very important that you grab that music note loop. So you should have something on your hook that looks like this. And then once you have that, you get your outer band, and you just take this first loop here, and you put it onto that outer band. Now, you'll flip the bands around and do the same thing again on the other side. And so you need an outer band and a center band. You always take the center band first, and you pull the first 4 loops onto it. Make sure you keep them organized. Then you get this music note loop that is closest to the other center band that's here on your hook, or that's here on this new band. So you grab that one there. So you put that one back on your hook, and then you put the other end of the new band, the new center band, on your hook. So you have something like that there. Then you get your outer band, and you take it and you pull it through only this first loop, and this first loop should be a center band. So make sure that music note loop is here in between these two here. And so there you go. And now we have added our outer bands, and we have completed the pattern for this design. So I'm going to go ahead and go through the pattern for making this design one more time, and then I'll leave you to continue making it on your own. And yeah. So to completely go through the entire pattern of making the design, you need 4 center bands, 2 music note bands, and 2 outer bands. Alright, so to begin the pattern, you need to make sure that these 2 center loops here are actually in the center of everything on your hook. Okay, once you've made sure that is true, you're going to take one of the loops and just cross it over the other one. I always grab the right side and pull it over the left. I always do the same one because it'll give this effect. It'll look like this if you always take the same one. And then once you've crossed those loops over, you want to put your finger over the loops so that they don't uncross. And we're going to start by adding our music note bands. But before we ever add music note bands or outer bands, we always take the center bands, which are always in the center. We always take them first. We take one, and we pull it through the first 4 loops here on our hook. Then we reattach this first loop here, so this loop that's closest to our fingers. Here we go, like that. Put the other end of the new band on your hook. Then you're going to take the music note band, and you're going to pull it through these first 2 loops, and you'll reattach that first one, that same one you had reattached before. You'll put that back on your hook again. So that should be that outer band loop there. Right? Now we've added the music note band we need on one side. Now we need to do the same exact thing on the other side. So you need to flip your bands around, however you do that. Then we're going to take, so we'll do the same thing we did over here on the other side now. We'll take a center band, pull it through the first 4 loops. There we go. And we'll reattach this first loop here, which is closest to our fingers. And that should be an outer band. Then we're going to take a music note band, pull it through these first 2 loops, and we're going to reattach the exact same loop we had before, which is that outer band. So reattach that same band again onto our hook, and then put the other end of the new band on your hook, and you got that. And now we're going to add our outer bands. So you take your 2 outer bands and your 2 center bands, and before we add any more bands, we need to make sure that these 2 center bands are actually here in the center, and we need to cross them over each other. So you can take the left and cross it over the right, or the right and cross it over the left. I always do the right over the left, like that. Make sure you get this little X shape here in the middle. Then, before we add our outer bands, we need to take a center band, put it on our hook, and pull it through these first 4 loops here. Make sure you keep them in order. And we're going to reattach this music note loop, which is actually the 3rd loop, and it's right next to the other center band here. So you just reattach that loop there. Put the other end of the new band on your hook. Now you'll take your outer band, put it on your hook, and pull it through only this first band here. So what you should have once you reattach that one band, you should have something that looks like this, and this outer band gets pulled through only this first loop here. Now we'll flip the bands around and do the exact same thing on the opposite side. You'll take a center band first, pull it through the first 4 loops, then there we go. Then we'll grab this 3rd loop here, which is this music note loop, and it's the one right next to the other center band here. So you'll take that one, reattach it on your hook here, then put the other end of the new band on your hook. You got something like this right here. Then you'll take an outer band and just pull it through that very first loop there. And there you go. That's the pattern for making the Hook Only Sonata bracelet. So if you're still not sure of how you make the design, I'll have down in the description the time you need to go back to, and you'll just rewatch that from that part to pretty much the end of the video if you're still not sure of how you make the design. And yeah, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and show you how you close the design off and make it into a bracelet. So when you go to finish off your design, you want to have either only outer bands on your hook, so only outer bands, or only music note bands. And I personally like ending it off with music note bands, but you need to have just music note bands or just outer bands on your hook. And how you would do that is so for music note bands, I believe, so you're here at the end of one of the steps, and so you close it off by, so you want to cross these 2 center bands still. You still want to cross them over. And you'll need 2 center bands to close it off, or actually 3, but right now you just need 2. So you'll take one and you'll pull it through these first 4 loops like normal. And so if you're at the end of adding an outer band, you would just do, so you just added your outer band, you would just go ahead and pick up that first loop there, which would be an outer band loop, and then put it back on your hook, and then you just wouldn't add a music note band. And I'll go ahead and show you on the other side. So you would flip the bands and do the same thing on the other side, but I'll go ahead and show you what you do when you go to add or close the design off with a music note band. So just give me a second. Alright, so when you go to close the band or the design off with, and you just added your music note band, you would take your center band, pull it through the first 4 loops like you're about to add an outer band, but you'll just pick up that 3rd loop, so that music note loop next to the other center band, like that, and then you just wouldn't add your outer band. And then to close the entire thing off, or, well, you would do the same thing on the other side, but to close the entire design off, so once you have just music note bands or just outer loop bands, so I'll actually go ahead and add a music note band, so both sides are the same. Alright, here we go. So to close the entire design off, you would just take your center band, one more, and pull it through all the bands here on your hook. Okay, I should have shown you. So you just pull it through all the bands here on your hook. There you go. And then put the other end of the new band on your hook. And then what you'll want to do is get your clip. There we go. You'll get your clip and attach it to this last band here. Now, if you want to add a single chain, like a little bit of a single chain to the end, then what you would do to do that is you would take another band that you would, so whatever color you want to use for your single chain, and pull it through all the bands on your hook there, and then put the other end on, and then just repeat that over and over till you make your single chain long enough. But whenever you finish with that one loop there, you'll just take your clip and attach it to that band. Take the band off your hook, and take your clip and attach it to your cap band. And it might be a little bit difficult, but you want to attach the cap band like this, so it's not going to be a little circle, it's going to be just that first center band there. And so I grab it like that and clip on like that. And then you have your Hook Only Sonata bracelet. So yeah, I guess now it's time for the outro. So I would like to thank you for watching my tutorial. Hopefully it showed you how to make the Hook Only Sonata bracelet successfully. Hopefully now you have one and you're wearing it. I think it's kind of pretty cool and stuff, and yeah. So I guess that's actually it for this video, other than thanks for watching, and bye!